Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I write for the Chicago Reader. My pronouns are he, him. And I am also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
You are, sir.
Indeed. Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
It's a word that doesn't get used enough, indeed. As
Really?
an affirmation.
Oh, I was like, really? I feel like, I don't know. Maybe because I say it. I don't know. I feel like it's being said, but maybe you're right. Now I'm going to be thinking about that.
You know what? I have a friend. Now I don't see him very often, but he uses the word indeed as an affirmation so often. It's
Love
kind
it.
of like, is that your name? So I think it's when I'm around other people and there's like an absence of it, it just feels like there's less of it because he says it all the time.
He set the bar very high for the
He
usage
did.
of indeed. Nice. Love that. All right. Well, before we dig into the two films that we're going to be talking about this week, we want to tell you about our Patreon episode. Every week, as you may know, we do bonus episodes for our patrons who give $5 or more. And this week we had our second Halloween. It is Halloween, but our second horror poll of the month. And the winner was Ginger Snaps, the 2000 Canadian horror film about werewolves and two sisters. Yeah. And we had a really great conversation. So go check it out if you're a patron. And if you're not, consider joining because you get that bonus episode as well as a whole bunch more.
Woo!
Now, woo-woo! You know I love a woo. I'm a woo girl. Or a woo woman. I say woo girl because that's a reference to How I Met Your Mother, but then I was like, but woo woman, that just sounds weird.
Yeah.
But I digress. Okay, back to this week and what we're talking about. We have two films. We're going to be talking about the horror film Five Nights at Freddy's, based on the video game franchise. And we're going to be talking about the documentary Bad Press. And that's what we're going to be starting with. This is a documentary that is directed by Rebecca Lansbury Baker and Joe Peeler. And let me give you the synopsis that came from the press release. A political docu-thriller about the fight for free press in the Muscogee Nation, Bad Press provides unparalleled insight into the inner workings of a modern Native American tribe. Just 3 years after its passage, the 2018 Free Press Act was repealed, placing Muscogee Media, the Muscogee Nation's sole news outlet, back under control of the chief and his cabinet. Veteran reporter Angel Ellis quickly becomes the key voice of dissent at the decimated news outlet and is willing to lay it all on the line to deliver the truth to her fellow citizens. That is a very accurate description, which I would hope coming from...
And lengthy.
Yes, and lengthy. Yeah, press release ones usually are. A bit lengthier. I had seen this documentary. I saw it back in January of this year. It was at Sundance, and I was very excited to revisit it, watch it again now that it's being released in theaters. Dave, what did you think of this documentary?
Loved it. Loved every minute of it. This really hits home a lot with me as a reporter.
Yes.
I think that, I'm sure our listeners know, but I was a reporter for many years. And I don't do it much anymore because the opportunities aren't there much anymore. But to watch, Angel and her colleagues go through this and to hear the arguments that you always hear, it doesn't matter whether it's coming from the Muscogee Nation or whether it's coming from somebody who doesn't like a negative story you've done. All they care about is their salary and upping their circulation. And it's like, you know what? God damn it. Nobody becomes a reporter because they want to make money or, up a paper circulation. I think that everybody who is a reporter would be like, hey, if the paper circulation goes up, great. That means, people are digging the truth that we're laying down.
Right, right.
Just to hear those arguments and just to see the people who are, there's that one fucker, I can't remember his name, he's on the council, who says before they do the vote to repeal the Press Act in the emergency session, this is at the very beginning of the movie, but he uses the phrase positive news.
Yes.
And it's just like, if I could tear your throat out right now, I fucking would. Because I'm just here to tell you, if somebody is lamenting that there's no positive news, you have two possibilities. One, they're a corrupt son of a bitch. Or two, which is more likely, they're not serious people. So
I like that you think that one's more likely.
well, I mean, there aren't that many people who have enough power to be corrupt, but the people who are corrupt, oh boy, do they have a lot of power.
Yeah.
But we don't need to get into capitalism right now. I guess what I'm getting at there is, like, what's your positive news story? Like, firefighters put out fire, no one injured? I mean, who gives a shit? That's what they do for a living, you know? Firefighters die tragically in fire. That's news because, A, you know that there was a horrific fire and some lives are destroyed and property is destroyed. You are told again what a dangerous profession that is, and how necessary it is. And even though I've known a lot of firefighters, and some of them are great and some of them are terrible people, these are people who are choosing to run into a building that's on fire to bring people out of it. So
that is true.
You know, I don't feel that way about cops. I'm definitely an ACAB kind of people about that. If you don't know what that means, look it up. So
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. So I was just watching this and hearing those arguments. I was like, oh, these motherfuckers. I hope.
Yeah, I was like, your blood must have been boiling.
Dude. And to, like, you know, have editors and publishers that you work for who drank the Kool-Aid of the advertising side of the paper. There's church and state, man. And the only time that the state gets involved with the church is when, like in Zodiac, when the Zodiac sends a letter and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is above my pay grade. Call the publisher.
Yes.
You know, that's when you get, you know, I have known publishers and editors. Well, it's more publishers, but I've known publishers who are very hands off. They're like, hey man, do your thing. If you got to, like, you know, make my friends angry, that's what you got to do. I'll worry about that. You worry about doing your job. But yeah, the whole idea that the paper would be under the control of, I don't remember which branch of was it the secretary? It doesn't really matter. It's some fucking person who has no business editing anything, and the only reason they're doing it is to make themselves and the government and the cabinet look better. So, by the way, if any of you is interested in how, you know, freedom of the press works, et cetera, there's a book out there called Minnesota Rag. It's a very short read. It's a very great read, and it's about how this newspaper in Minnesota was sued, and case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and basically the Supreme Court said, nope, they can write what they want as long as it's true. Fuck off. And it's written, I think the book's written by Fred Friendly, and if you know that name, he was a producer at CBS for a long time. But the movie Good Night and Good Luck is about the two of them, the George Clooney movie. I mean, I don't think that people really understand. I mean, you know, all reporters, at least all the reporters I know, get thirsty going after a story. But it's not because, like, I've never known anybody who's like, man, I can't wait to be on fucking MSNBC tonight. Awesome. You know, everybody does it willingly because they want their story to get out there. But, you know, if you're going to be on TV, most of the time it's past your bedtime. You know, you're not, you know, you may be getting like a, you know, a small compensation from the network because you do get compensated for being on TV. But, you know, it's not something you go out of your way to look for. So just hearing, you know, oh, well, we want the news to be more accurate, and that's what the government says. And all they care about is their salaries. These people sit around and do nothing. Fuck the fuck off. All right. I swear to God. Yeah. You know, I had one publisher I worked for who shall remain nameless. Although when I was on my way out the door, I told him exactly what I thought of him, but I did it politely.
Ooh.
And what I said
to him.
Well, he's a smart guy, and he knew I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. And because I am a pot stirrer, if nothing else, in that line of work. And I just said to him, you're a really great publisher, but I think the editor that you were would be really disappointed.
Oh, that's a
yeah.
burn.
And he just kind of looked at me like he wanted to stab me in the throat. And I was like, well, see you later. That's my last day.
Deuces. I'm out.
Anyway, though, part of the reason I bring up those things is because when you watch Angel in this documentary, who becomes our protagonist, and she's a fiery personality. She's great. You can just tell that she is a fucking, she wants the truth, you know?
Yes.
And that's the thing I think people don't understand about reporters. It's just like they're doing this stuff because they want to know what's going on.
Yes.
Not because they think, they'll get a great book deal out of it. I mean, Maggie Haberman probably feels that way, but I mean, she's been a reporter for 25 years. Of course she thinks that way.
Right.
So 25 years? Is she that old? I don't know. Let's just say 25 years, give or take a decade on either side. I don't know. So to watch Angel go through this and see her character attacked, and if you want to say that she smokes a lot of cigarettes and she swears a lot, you can say that.
Because she does.
But I know a lot of really great reporters who are fine people who smoke a lot of cigarettes and swear a lot. It's almost a rite of passage for some people. But to watch this whole process play out, which is the repeal of the law and then the struggle that the people who remain at the paper have. I think did 16 employees quit? I mean, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I think it was 16.
16 almost immediately. And then you only see like 5 or 6 others who are still there because they don't want to go back to, as Angel had described. She pulled old newspapers from the archives and was like, Tribe decides to do this cool thing that like is so
like a
positive.
beauty pageant.
Yeah, just like, oh, give me a break.
It was absurd.
But one of the things that I found fascinating, and I found many things in this documentary fascinating, that no matter whether they're members of the Muscogee Creek Nation or whether they're from, let's just say Minnesota, because we were talking about the Minnesota rag,
right?
Or they're this person from like Long Island, whatever. I can fucking smell a scumbag the moment it's amazing. That fucking first chief walks on screen, I'm like, well, this guy's trouble. Just... And that fucking asshole who gets, credibly accused of sexual assault and who like demands a recount and gets it. I mean, my God. And
that was appalling.
But from what it sounds like when they had the second vote, it sounds like he lost by even more.
Yes, which is great. I love it.
Yeah. And even, I didn't feel this way initially, but I started to, the guy who wins the election and becomes chief, I think his name was David Hill. I didn't get bad vibes from him at the beginning. And when he wins the election, he seems truly moved that he can, now do the work. But there was just a little bit of, they're setting this up in such a way that I feel like I'm going to meet the new boss, same as the old boss, right out of, won't get fooled again, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah. Sadly.
And also the other guy, I can't remember his name, the guy who ended up running, he advanced in the runoff. I don't remember his name. I was just like, this guy's a scumbag too. I mean, just good God. It's amazing. Like, it just must be a thing with all politicians. It's just like, the thing that's the most tragic though.
Oh, see.
What?
We're going to diverge there.
Well, I think one of the things that's amazing about it is not, when I say all politicians, I think what I mean is rightward politicians. But the thing that's truly sad, though, is when you see someone like Mittens Romney, who I think
Mittens.
who at his core is a decent human being, but has been so corrupted by business and, whatever the fuck else. that you just see him constantly at war with himself, and you're just like, you know what? Why don't you just fucking retire and go like live on a mountainside? Jesus Christ.
My politician defense is, I think, very much one that you probably feel similarly about reporters.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about reporters too. But listen, there are a lot of scumbag politicians out there. You're 100% correct, because there's a lot of scumbag people out there. There's also a lot of wonderful, beautiful people.
Of course.
And I have worked in politics, and not very extensively, but I have. And what I witnessed is that most people, not all, but most people who enter it truly do it, not because they're power hungry,
right,
or anything like that. It's because they truly want to make a difference. Now, their version of making a difference might be appalling to, like, to social justice issues or to many other people, but they do think that they are going to make a difference. And so, but at the same time, what I glean from what you're saying, that I think you're spot on about, is that so often, power corrupts. And
yes,
to see this election, and to see the Chiefs like not listening to the people, not listening to the reporters, it's just like, oh no, you're getting corrupted too. Like, it's sad. It's really sad.
Well, it's like that argument at the end of the movie that one of the women is using is like, they just want to collect a salary and do nothing. You're projecting.
Yeah.
That's what your politicians are doing.
Right.
And I should clarify that when I say they're all scumbags, what I mean is, I don't mean they're all scumbags. No. I really don't think all politicians are scumbags. What I mean is, when I see a scumbag, I know immediately. Like, immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no doubt, And it's just like,
well, you have a great judge of character, so.
Well, I hope so. But thank you.
At least on your scumbag radar.
Yeah. It's just like, people be like, why don't you like that guy? I'm just like, just wait until you find out there's a child's set of bones in his basement, or whatever.
Ah!
Yeah. So.
But yes. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you about Angel. Like, Angel's amazing. And I think
she's so great.
So great. And seeing her story, because you're right, she is the protagonist of this documentary, seeing her story and hearing her talk about how she lost her job earlier because somebody didn't like what she reported about them, even though it was accurate. And so they called up her editor and were like, she's a shit stirrer, you need to fire her. And so she got fired. Yeah. And, she talks about worrying about her job stability and security, and when she has kids, and she needs to pay her bills. And I think that's something that so many people, sometimes when they criticize a profession or criticize a person, they don't think about, like, this is their livelihood. They need to do this. And I think hearing you talk about journalism and being a reporter is invaluable, because I think you're right. A lot of people who may not be familiar with the profession from the inside out, they don't necessarily know all the ins and outs. But something I wanted to touch on that we haven't talked about yet is the fact that in the very beginning of the documentary, it talks about how, because there is this, free press act, and that gets repealed. But the thing of it is that it says right in the beginning of the documentary that out of 574 federally recognized tribes, only 5 have passed laws protecting freedom of the press. I think by the end of the documentary, it's like 6 or 7. But still, that's almost 600 tribes that don't have codified protections for their press to be free and to just write the truth and to report on stories. And because each tribe is their own nation, and so they have their own amendments, their own constitutions, they have their own laws. And I think, and that's something that, like, I knew but didn't really think about in that way. Like, oh, each tribe is going to have their own set of rules in the sense of freedom of the press. And I think that's something, like, I just took for granted that, like, because the US has freedom of the press, every single tribe is going to have freedom of the press, and they don't. And that just, like, that simple fact just kind of blew my mind. Like, because that's to me, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Those are just fundamental tenets of democracy, and which we don't technically have a democracy, but that's a whole other conversation and a whole other thing. But it just kind of blew my mind that that's not something guaranteed, within Native American laws within the tribes. And it's just, wow. Because it should be, as we see, it's needed. And I think that if you place this documentary in that context of not just in Native American laws and tribes, but also just globally, we need access to free speech and free press.
Well, I think one of the things this documentary does really well, and I don't know if this is an intended consequence or not, it probably is, but when you tell a highly specific story well, for some reason, the universality of it is very clear.
Yes.
Yes. And they don't need to talk about, what the New York Times is doing or the Boston Globe is doing or Wall Street Journal, which is whatever. Have mixed feelings about the Journal. But
I have mixed feelings about all of them that you just said, so I hear you.
I have mixed feelings about the New York Times too, yes. But I mean, I have the most mixed feelings about the Wall Street Journal.
That's fair. That is very fair and understandable.
I mean, one of the things that I think, I don't know if you listen to me talk, I'm not the most, when I'm riffing on the mic like we do on the show, I'm not maybe the most expressive or correctly expressive, or I don't know. I don't string together my thoughts neatly, but I read a shitload, and most of it is periodicals, because I don't really have the time to sit down and read as much as I would love to read all the rom-coms that are coming out in book form. Rom-coms are surprisingly long.
That would occupy a lot of your time.
Yes, it would. So when I read novels, they're usually shorter on purpose. But I guess the point I'm making is like, just to see things articulated like this is just so invaluable, and to read them, to have access to, I mean, it blows my fucking mind. Now, I'm just going to say the New York Times because it's a paper of record, and they get all kinds of things wrong all the time. I mean, the people who are writing the bulk of their headlines need to be, they need to be removed. Let's just put it that way. And the people who write their photo captions need to be removed. This is another thing that people don't understand. It's really rare for a reporter to write their own headlines.
Yes, it's true.
That's why it so often seems like there's a disconnect between the headline and the story.
Yep.
And I don't think that a lot of people understand even what goes into, like, the layers and layers upon layers of editing. There's now, I'm not going to use like the technical terms because they won't mean anything to anybody, but like, you've got your line edit, which is like literally your editor, your base level editor going through line by line and saying like, this is not clear. What did you mean here?
Right.
There's that. And then there's the copy editor. And then there's the manuscript editor. And then there's if it's a really important story, your section leader will look at it, and maybe even your editor in chief. I mean, and then it will go back through the whole process if you change anything. And this is on daily breaking news stories even. I mean, I'm kind of fucking on my soapbox now, so it doesn't really...
No, but I think, yes, you are, but that there's a reason why there is that very laborious and extensive process, because you want to make sure you get the facts right. You want to make sure you're telling the story as accurately and correctly as possible. And I was going to say as unbiased, but really there is no such thing as unbiased. Every person has a bias. Right, that's true. But every person comes in with their own bias. I would argue, magazine, newspaper, whatever, editors, all of it. But yes, you want to be as unbiased as possible. And that's why you want so many eyes on it. So I think that's really important that you're saying that. And I think it's really important in the context of this documentary. But I think what this documentary does exceptionally well, and there's a lot of things it does. And watching it a second time, by the way, it was just as riveting just as exciting as the first time I saw it.
Totally.
And well, you didn't see it a second time.
I can tell you, I
You're
could
like,
watch
I already
this.
know.
I could watch this once every 2 weeks for the next year, and every time be like, God damn it, I don't know if they're going to get this law passed. You know, like
I know, and you'd still be fired up. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's really well edited. It's really well done. It's an incredibly great documentary. I don't even remember what I was going to say, but basically, I think this is a really crucial film for a variety of reasons. I think because it's, it gives insight into Native American tribes that people who are not inside that, wouldn't have. I think it gives insight into the editorial process and the reporting process and journalism that, people like, unlike yourself, who you've lived it, Dave, not everybody does. And so they don't know. But I think it's also just so important because especially after the Trump presidency, that sentence just makes me want to vomit. But especially after that, there was such an attack on reporters and such mistrust in reporters and in journalism. And that's the reason there is this process. And it is a science, like it's kind of like the scientific method. Like you have to keep, testing things. And that's the whole point of science, is that you're testing to make sure you get the same results. And that's the same thing with journalism. Like it's going through all these round of edits and you're fact checking and you're making sure everything's okay, so it can be as accurate as possible. And that's crucial. And you need reporters who are going to report on the quote unquote bad stories. And, it's funny when you kicked this off talking about, you knew the jerk guy because he was like, oh, we do need more positive stories. And this is what I wanted to say. I'm kind of realizing what my original point was, is that Angel says that, I think it's Angel who says this because there's other reporters who talk too. But someone says this, that, because there has been a history of Native American tribes and Native American people not being seen by white people and white supremacy as being capable of taking care of themselves and being capable of handling their own business, that some people in the tribes don't want anything negative out there because you want just positivity, because it's like, no, we're doing it and we're successful and we're progressing and all that. And I'm sure that's very true. And that must be really hard to grapple with. On the flip side, though, what I kept thinking is, wow, well, that would be a great way for someone to exploit that and to get away with crimes and embezzlement and corruption and all this and that. So I think this documentary really looks at that angle from a lot of ways.
All of the things that so many leaders are accused of.
Very true. Very true. But we've been talking about this film for a long time, and I think we probably could talk about it for a lot longer. So we should probably wrap up. Do you have any closing thoughts on Bad Press?
It's fascinating, and I think it's important to watch. I think it's so well done that even if you're not necessarily interested in the subject matter of the press, I mean, it is kind of a nail biter. It's really well edited. So, I mean, there's no mystery to what the ending is going to be, because I was thinking about this. I'm like, they wouldn't have been able to make this documentary if, now, granted, they didn't get their funding from the tribe, so maybe they would have, but who knows? It's just it's so well done. It's worth a watch. That's all.
I agree. And I was going to say, I want you to have the last word on it because you're a journalist, so you should.
Yeah, that's my last word. It's crucial. It's vital. And the movie is a great representation of it being journalism.
Agreed. I guess I technically got the last word.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yes. All right. Nice one. Okay. We are now going to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. So, sorry, I'm laughing because this movie has been highly anticipated. Not by me. Not that I was not. Sorry.
Oh my God.
That's not
Best
even how I meant
line
it.
of the night.
Woohoo! I win. I didn't even mean it like that. I just mean like when so many, I have heard about this movie for such a long time, and I was just like, what the hell is Five Nights at Freddy's? Like, so this has been, people have been anxiously awaiting this, and because it's based on a video game franchise, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm losing it. Anyway, this is directed by Emma Tammy. It's written by her as well as Scott Cawthon, who is the person who created Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's also written by Scott Cuddyback. And it stars Josh Hutcherson, as well as Elizabeth Lail, Kat Connor Sterling, and Piper Rubio, along with Mary Stuart Masterson and Matthew Lillard. So let me give you the synopsis. This is also not a brief one, but this is from the press release. It is a very long one, so I'm going to find the very brief part of it. Right. The film follows a troubled security guard as he begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While spending his first night on the job, he realizes the night shift at Freddy's won't be so easy to make it through. That is very short and doesn't really tell you anything about it. So basically what you need to know is this is a horror film inside a defunct Chuck E. Cheese, like, essentially. And there are these animatronic, I don't want to say dolls, but that's not what they are. But they're like
animals, right?
Animals that like they're animatronic animals, and they're huge, and they like faux sing, and they look like they're playing musical instruments. And yeah, like if you've been to Chuck E. Cheese or a place like that, or even Disney World, although they don't look as good as the ones at Disney, but yes, this is what they are. And so Josh Hutcherson plays Mike, and he's kind of struggling because he has trouble sleeping. He has dreams, and he keeps reliving. And we learn later that it's because when he was a kid, his brother was kidnapped by a guy, but he doesn't know who. And he believes in this theory that if he revisits his dreams enough, you always everything that you see, like it's always in your memory, but you just have to access it. And so he's always returning to his dreams to this one event so he can reveal some detail. So he's taking care of his little sister. There's a huge age difference, so people think that he's her dad, but he's not. He's the brother because his mother died and the father ran off, I guess. Who knows?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And so he doesn't really want to take a night job because he's taking care of his sister, who's young. But he ends up taking this job, and it's as a security guard because he was a security guard in a mall, and he ended up getting fired because he beat the shit out of a guy who he thought was kidnapping a little boy, but come to find out that was the guy's dad. So he starts working at the pizza place, and basically all he has to do is watch the cameras and make sure no one gets in at night. And that's it. And weird stuff happens, and on like the second night, people do get in because there's a custody battle between him and his aunt, played by Mary Stuart Masterson, and they get murdered. But his little sister befriends the animatronic animals, and eventually, spoiler alert, we find out that the animatronic animals are actually possessed by ghosts, the ghosts of the children who the child murderer and kidnapper kidnapped and murdered. So, and their bodies are inside the animatronic animals. So yeah.
Yeah. I do wonder what the whole purpose of the opening scene with the security guard who
yes.
He gets stuck in the chair, and then an animatronic head is put on him, which has got all kinds of whirring gears inside of it that are very sharp, clearly, and it's going to shred his face. It's like, what's the purpose of that? Because he doesn't end up being in an animatronic. Is it just to kill him?
I think so.
I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, strangely, I kind of like this.
I didn't expect that.
I'm sort of surprised at myself. But I can acknowledge there are a whole lot of things in this movie that just don't make sense. Like, they don't make sense on like a real logical level, and they don't make sense according to the movie's own rules, So like ghost children and their bodies living inside animatronic, I don't understand that. I guess you don't have to. And the other thing that I would say is, what's the kid's name? Josh Hutcherson? What's his name?
Mike
Schmidt. I should know that. Baseball player. Philadelphia Phillies, 1973,
Yes.
1986. And 1989, pardon me. The whole connection that he has to who we learn later is the owner is tenuous at best. Because, you know, this movie is clearly not made in Nebraska, but the pine forest where his brother was abducted, I think, is supposed to have been Nebraska. And it's like, okay, so what is the logical connection of, you know, the Five Nights at Freddy's owner being there, but doing the bulk of his kidnapping and murdering clearly elsewhere? Like, was he just having a cross-country child murder spree that summer? I mean,
I don't know.
There's no motivation behind what he does other than what one of the characters says, which is, you know, he's an evil man. Yeah. I mean, I get, you know, if you want to say, hey, Adolf Hitler was evil, that I get, you know, but describing someone as evil, what I mean, evil is like, it's like I say, movies need reasons. You can't, you know, when you have coincidence in movies, it just looks corny and easy and sort of cheap. So when you call like a real person evil, you know, you have history to look at and be like, oh, right, I get it. But when you have a character in a movie say, well, he's evil, it's like, well, why should I listen to you? Fuck off. You know, like, what sense does this make?
Because he's murdering children.
We don't know that.
Children.
We don't know that.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, sure. That by the end, of course, you know, it all makes sense. Well, the he's a terrible person thing makes sense.
Right. Not the whole movie. I knew what you meant.
and it doesn't make sense, like how he can, you know, he says in the Matthew Lillard plays this is spoiler piece. What am I fucking being cagey about?
By the way, I have to interject. I knew that because I'm like, why would you have Matthew Lillard unless he's going to play a pivotal role, which of course is going to be the villain. So yes.
Right. It's kind of how I feel. And you're sitting there and then you have Mary Stuart Masterson. Well, she's not going to be playing the villain. So she's the red herring. I mean, she's not really a red herring. It's never even remotely suggested that she could be behind this. But she is there to move the plot forward in the sense that to make it much more necessary to immediately feel for Mike and his little sister, Abby. The other thing that I'm not really sure I understand, there's a lot of stuff I don't understand. You know, Matthew Lillard says at the end, and this got a huge reaction from our audience filled with nerds. So, well, I mean, honestly,
I feel attacked as a nerd, not as,
well, you know what?
I'm not a fan of this franchise.
I generally speaking don't have a problem with like nerd culture or whatever, but occasionally there are times when it's just, would you fucking relax? You're not, you know, having the best sex of your life right now, okay?
Wow.
Jesus. Do you know what sex is, nerd? I'm just kidding. That was a little much. So anyway, so anyway, you know, how he says this thing at the end, which is like, I'll come back. I always come back because the animatronics have killed him. And it's like, okay, everybody in the audience knows what that means because they've reacted to it with thunderous applause and woohoos and whatever. I don't know what it means. I am under no obligation to know what it means. You know, I'm just a casual moviegoer. But I also don't understand, you know, if you're going to have all of these things that are either what you want to call it, magical realism or fantasy or whatever, how does he exist in two places? You know, I think that's, you know, if it's a total fucking mystery, it's just kind of like, okay, well, like we said, he's evil. Let's just go with that, even though I don't buy it. And because he's so evil, he can live in these two different. He can be Steve Ragsdale or whatever the guy's name. There's Regali. I don't remember what his name is. And he can also be William Afton, who invented Freddy Fazbear's and murdered all these children and stuck them in the animatronics. I mean, it's just, I think one of the things that this movie has going for it is it's just so bizarre, the whole conceit, that it's just kind of like, well, it's just ridiculous anyway. So why not just sit back and watch it happen? You know, there is part of it. But then when you sit and you think about it for a minute, it's like, well, wait a minute. Why does all of this stuff happen? The other thing is, how is Abby connected to the dead children? You know?
That's, I think, the most important question.
Before she's ever met them, they're her imaginary friends. Like,
yes.
She's drawing them. How?
Yes.
You know, how are the children
Magic. I don't know.
coming into his dreams?
Yeah.
Like, I just, you know, there's horror movies that explain too much, and then there's horror movies that don't explain enough. I don't think we found the sweet spot yet.
No, not in this one.
But that being said, I don't know. There was still something about it that I liked. I don't know. It had a consistent mood, which is hard to do in movies in general. But I think it's really hard to do in this kind of adaptation. Now, I have no idea how close this adheres to the source material, and frankly, I don't care. But, well, you know how I feel about source material. It's like, look,
right.
The movie is the movie and the book's the book, or the video game's the video game.
I completely agree with you on that. And
I'm sorry it ruined your childhood, but I got an idea. Go back and watch the one you like a lot instead. You know, it's just anyway. I've yapped so much this episode. Why don't you talk about this? Because I feel like you probably have differing opinions from mine anyway.
I mean, so I was excited to see this, not because it was Five Nights at Freddy's, but I was excited because I was like, oh, a horror movie in a defunct Chuck E. Cheese. Like, that sounds kind of amazing. But then I was even more excited because it's directed and written by Emma Tammy. And I love Emma Tammy's first film, The Wind, which is a horror Western. And it's really good. And it's got a lot of...
Oh, The Wind is good.
Yes. It's got so much mood and everything's eerie. And you don't know if the protagonist, if she's imagining things or she's freaked out or if things are really happening. Like, it's just such a great eerie vibe. And I love that movie. I think it's great. And so when I found out she was directing, I was like, oh, this is, okay. This is such a departure from that, like vibe-wise. Which I'm not surprised, of course. But yeah, I don't know if I liked it as much as you. Not that I need to like it as much or more or less or whatever. But there were definitely parts I really liked. I like Josh Hutcherson. And I think
I did too. I don't like that guy. And I thought he was really good.
I think he's really good. Yeah. I do like him as Peter Malark. He will always be Peter Malark to me from Hunger Games. But yeah, I like him in that. I like him in this. I think he very much does trauma well. He does it in Hunger Games well, and he does it here. And so I think that partly is why it worked for me, his performance. And I like the girl who plays, I almost said Emma, Abby. I think she's good. And I feel like their relationship feels authentic. So I liked that. What I had a problem with is I had a problem with the pacing. I felt a lot of stops and starts. And which I wanted more consistent momentum. And the thing of it is like, I love a slow burn, but with a slow burn, it's still consistent. Like, it might be slow, but it's consistently slow, and it's usually like building to something,
Yeah, I like the word deliberate.
Yes, deliberate. That's perfect. That is perfect. Deliberately paced. But yeah, but here it's like, again, it's like, like we're standing up, we're getting ready to go. Oh no, we're sitting back down.
That's such a great way to describe it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that really curbed my enjoyment of it just because of the pacing issues. And the other thing is that I don't think it's the greatest use of space. Like, I was kind of envisioning like
Mm.
a green room, the movie, which I adore that movie too, and kind of
Oh,
how
yeah.
like, right, like when they're how they're trapped in the bar and they're like running through it, running from the neo-Nazis, and such a great film. But I was kind of imagining that like this is a confined space and we're going to make use of the space. And while there are some really great shots of like shadows of the animatronics, which by the way, I think the animatronics are done exceptionally well. They're by the Jim Henson Creature Shop, and I think they're done great. And they're kind of like sweet in a weirdo way, but also very ominous and menacing and creepy.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a perfect balance. But yeah, so we see some really creepy shadows, which I think is really well done. But I wanted a little more usage of the space, like that feeling of being confined. And so I didn't quite get that. But aside from that, I did like it. So yeah, but for me, the pacing just to me hindered some of my enjoyment.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the games at all. But if I had to guess, I would imagine that the cop who is the secret daughter is
yes.
either not in the games or she's a minor character in the games. She's not like a... It seems like an amped up role because you got to have somebody to explain everything, right? Otherwise, like, what the fuck is going on? That's just a guess. I don't have any idea. I did like the relationship between Mike and Abby. I thought it was really authentic. I don't understand the age gap because like if his father was so like fucked up by his brother's kidnapping that the moment his mother what's the guy's name? What's our main character? Mike's mother died.
Mike.
that he split. It just doesn't make sense to me that unless it was a total oopsie baby, like that they would have a third kid, you know? This seemed convenient plot-wise more than anything else.
I agree. I also, I don't understand why we couldn't have had him be a single father. Like, why did he have to be the brother? Like, it just seemed like not that
probably
there's
the custody thing, right?
Oh, you're right. You're
right.
What
I'm because if you bring in like the evil aunt or the faux evil aunt, she actually ends up in the scene where she's actually with Abby at the end. She actually doesn't seem like she's all that bad.
No, although I don't know. She seems bad when she's like plotting his demise before. But you're right. With Abby, she doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah. But I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's just because I can't remember anything.
I know that feeling.
Oh, the difference between him being an older brother and being a father. I think father, if he's her father, then the custody thing brings in like whatever that state's version of DCF is.
Yeah.
Department of Children and Families. And then it becomes just like a lot more dour, even more dour than it already is.
No, I think you're right. Right. But why not just have, and I'm not advocating for, multiple parents to die, but if you're going to have the mother die, why not have just had like the father die too in an accident? It's just, I don't know. It seems
like one of them dies of a disease like cancer, which people die from every day.
Yes, they
do. And then the other one is in a car accident. I mean, that's the fucking opening chapter of a heartbreaking work of staggering genius. Well, they both die of cancer, but
oh, great.
If you've never read that one,
I haven't, but I didn't mean like, oh, great, as in the spoiler. I meant, oh, great, as in like that's super uplifting.
Yeah, and it's non-fiction. Well, it's nonfiction in air quotes, but I don't know. I think you're right about the use of space, and there are things that I don't understand. Like I understand bringing in security guards to like, have the animals to play with but I don't understand. Like there's a very clear purpose when William Afton pretending to be, the career counselor, which as a job actually makes sense because he would need to supply people to the restaurant.
Yes, he would.
But what doesn't make sense is why he needs to dispatch all the others, or why the animals. Now, his daughter says, who plays the cop, who is, it's interesting how they explain that she's the daughter, because like the whole time this is going on, I'm like, when are we going to find out? I didn't know what the bombshell was going to be, but I'm like, she's hiding something.
Oh,
what
God,
is it?
yeah. It's so
because
obvious.
like
Because she knows what everything is.
She knows everything. She knows this. She knows that. And he even says to her, he's like, why do you know so much about this place? And she's like, whatever. It meant a lot to me when I was a kid or something. And it makes sense why he would try to get Mike to work there. You know, given the, like I said earlier, tenuous connection to his brother's kidnapping and death, which you learn now. You know that a kidnapped child in most media is going to be dead. The way that he says that so casually, I thought was actually a really good choice. When I say he, I mean William Afton, when he's just like, I killed your brother and now I'm going to kill you. Like, it's just like you're just, gum on my shoe to be removed, asshole.
Yes, just disposable. Yep.
Yeah, totally. And I thought, and the thing, I think Matthew Lillard is a really good actor. And I don't think, because he always plays like weirdos and stuff like that, he doesn't get the credit. But if you see him in more straight roles, like in he's in one of Alexander Payne's movies, The Descendants, and he's just like a guy that George Clooney's wife was having an affair with, and he's just a guy in that movie, and he's really good, And I think it's unfortunate that, he plays weirdos so well. I mean, it's just...
He's so good at it, yeah.
He's so expressive in the voices.
Exactly.
And then his performance at the end, when it's revealed that he's the evil rabbit or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's scary, but it's eerie, Just how, like, all of the Matthew Lillard humor of his performances just disappears instantly.
Yep.
And it becomes like viscerally evil.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe this is creepy. Ugh. Yeah. Maybe this is what she meant by the owner's evil.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny because, I always think of, I know he's obviously been in numerous movies like Hackers and Scooby-Doo and all that, but I always think of him in, Scream, being the villain in Scream. And he's so campy and so over the top and very queer-coded too, which I love very much, which I love. But he is so expressive. And I agree with you. I actually think he's a much better actor than people give him credit for. And I think he is kind of the perfect villain here, because he's just got such presence, and he is really expressive, but he is really terrifying at the end here. Ooh.
Yeah. There are also a couple of good reoccurring gags, like that little tiny porcelain doll with the teeth that keeps showing up everywhere. I don't know why. I never expected any of that. Well, I expected the first jump scare when he opens the locker. I didn't know what it was going to be.
You said that too. You're like, jump scare.
Yeah, I did. But when he shows up the second time, I had no idea that was coming.
That was a good one. And
then when he showed up the third time, when he gets into the cab, he gets into a cab in the mid-credit sequence. I don't know if you were still there for that.
No, I left. I went to the bathroom. I had to pee.
There's a scene earlier where Abby gets into a cab with we should mention, Abby befriends all of the dead ghost children, and they want her to become a dead ghost child too. Not out of like malice or anything, but because they think she's great. And we want to hang out with you. And that's just so sad.
It's so sad. Like, there is malice there because they don't understand like the consequences. Like, but it is. But it is so sad.
Yeah. I also want to say I don't think it's sad necessarily, but when the babysitter, and now she's not really the babysitter, she's plotting. Although you get the feeling that she actually does like Abby, though. You know?
She seems to.
It's one of those things where I guess she needs money. Anyway, when she gets bitten in half in silhouette, but still. Oh my
God.
I knew something was going to come out of that bear's mouth, but I thought it was going to be more like, you remember in Alien? I think it's when in the first Alien, when the alien like uses its second smaller jaw to bash Harry Dean Stanton's head in. I thought it was going to be more like that. It would be like it knocks her out and then you see her get dragged off screen or something.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. fucking bites her right in fucking half. I mean,
yeah. So
wow.
we should set this up because that scene is great. Yeah. So she's with the crew that are hired by Mary Stuart Masterson to trash the place. So Mike will lose his job. And so all the other people are dead. And she's like wandering through the pizza place to try to find them. And then she hears a little kid who's like, come here. And she chases after him. And it's one of the ghost kids. And then they're like, warmer. And there's, one of the big animatronics. And very slowly she sticks her head close to the mouth. And I'm like, oh my God. And then she gets cut in half. And it's like, oh my God, she's bitten. Yikes.
Yeah. I also want to throw this in there, and I can't believe I'm this person. But I cannot believe this movie is PG-13. I cannot believe it because it is so violent. And unlike a lot of PG-13 movies, and we were talking about this off mic.
Yes.
You were saying that you thought even more disturbing than the violence was the subject matter.
Yes.
Which is kidnapped and murdered children.
Yes, exactly. The child kidnapping and murdering. Yes. Very disturbing.
Which is horrifying, but I think I've just seen enough Nightmare on Elm Street movies for that to like roll right off my back.
Well, yes, there is that, which I do love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. They're great.
But you're right about that. But also and a lot of the violence is implied, like the biting in half. Like I said, it happens in silhouette, but it's a well-directed scene, so it's effective.
It is.
And also, there's a surprising amount of blood in a PG-13 movie. PG-13 movies, like think of all the Bond movies lately. How many people die in those fucking movies? Not 1 ounce of blood is spilled on screen, except for maybe Bond gets a cut on his face or something. I mean, this movie, you've got the ghost children during one of the dream sequences slashing Josh Hutcherson with knives and grappling hooks, and him bleeding from those wounds.
That is true.
When he wakes up.
Yes, he's still bleeding.
There's one that looks like he gets his Achilles tendon cut, which obviously he doesn't because he can still walk.
He'd be dead,
something. I mean, good God, man. I'm not like, I am more squeamish than I used to be, but still, generally speaking, movie blood doesn't bother me. Like we were talking about in the Patreon episode, Ginger Snaps, which has a whole lot of blood in it. Not irked or bothered by that remotely, But I think it's because the violence is implied, which is one of the side effects of the PG-13 rating.
Yes.
When it's done really well, this bloodless violence is even more creepy,
Yes. Yeah.
So, and, there's the child kidnapping murder. So.
There's that.
Yeah. Oh, we should also mention that the main character, evil Matthew Lillard, stabs his own daughter in the gut.
Yeah, he does.
In a pretty intense moment toward the end of the film. And
she survives. It's fine.
Well, I mean, she's in a coma.
Well, she's in a coma. I know. I was like, well, she's in a coma.
And then also, Mary Stuart Masterson has clearly been murdered by the animatronic bear.
Yes.
But that never comes back around.
No.
They're just...
No, right. I was expecting it at least later to come back around. No, it doesn't.
No.
All right. Well, do we have any final thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's?
I mean, if you're into just like, like kind of atmospheric, creepy horror, as opposed to, like viscera, it's not the thing, is what I'm saying. Although it does have its, gorier moments. But if you're into the atmospheric stuff, I'd say this might be for you, because also PG-13 movie, biting someone's face off and also grinding someone's face into a pulp with animatronic gear. Yes. Gross.
Yes.
So anyway, I think it's worth seeing. I really do. I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm surprised at myself. And the other thing I want to mention, and this might be my final thought, and this might be the scariest thing I've said all night. My 8-year-old has asked me, hey, are you going to see Five Nights at Freddy's? He has never played the game. He's never seen the game. I don't have the game. His little friends at school are talking about this. That's why he knows what it is.
Not surprised.
Mind blown. I can only
Yeah.
imagine what he's going to be talking about when he's 13. Anyway.
You've got some time before that happens.
Yeah, it goes faster than you think. So, how about
All
you?
right.
What about your final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. So I hadn't really thought about that because I was ready to do like the the closing and all that and the recap. So I was in that zone. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree. I think that this is really atmospheric. Like I said, there's pacing issues, massive pacing issues.
Yes.
But yeah, if you can deal with that, and I definitely think it's worth watching. Especially the creature design. I think that in and of itself is worth the price of admission. And I also love, we didn't talk about this, but as a side note, I really like the usage of lighting and color in this film. It's very lot of neon, very vibrant. And, considering that so many films look gray or drab or like very monotone, and this does not. This is very vibrant, a lot of contrast. I really appreciate that. So yeah, looks
also pretty good sound design too.
Yes, you're right. So yeah, this is a well-crafted film. So I would say see it too. So this is in theater. So Five Nights at Freddy's is in theaters, and it's also streaming on Peacock same day, which is kind of wild to me because usually there's a delay. So yeah, go out and see it. Watch it at home on Peacock. And I'd say we both recommend it. And I think it's also safe to say that we both recommend Bad Press, highly recommend Bad Press.
For sure.
Yeah. So that is opening in theaters in Los Angeles today, October 27th, and New York on December 1st. So there's quite a lag. And then it'll be opening in more cities. So unfortunately, unless you're in LA, you'll probably have to wait a while to see this, but definitely put it on if you're not in LA, put it on your list because it is a great must-see documentary.
For sure. Absolutely. And you've got a month and a half to get your fucking dander up about it. So there's that too.
There is that. So we want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Heather.
And while we're doling out the thanks, we also want to give a huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making us sound great week after week.
Otto, woohoo!
Otto does deserve a woohoo.
Yeah.
So you can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com, and you can find us on our social media platforms. We're at Spoiler Piece on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok. I think that's everywhere. Yes. So Come follow us, say hello. Speaking of saying hello, you can email us spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call.
86221-PEACE.
You know what to do. Leave us a voicemail message. Text us. Let us know what you think of these movies, and just say hi. We like hearing from you. If you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That really helps us get the word out about the show. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. That will take you to your preferred platform of choice. You can also just go directly to Apple Podcasts and rate us. That helps us out a lot. Or you can go to Spotify and rate us there too. And if you really, really like the show, consider becoming a patron. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes like this week's, where we talk about our poll winner. And yes, we do have polls each month. Our poll winner was Ginger Snaps, and we had a lot of fun talking about it. So yeah, you can listen to those bonus episodes, get more Spoiler Piece, listen to us yap more. You can vote in polls, tell us what to watch. And yeah, it's a fun time. So if you are a patron, thank you. And if you're not, please consider joining. And we also have merch. If you go to our website, spoilerpiece.com, that will take you to our TeePublic store. You can buy t-shirts, sweatshirts, pillows, tote bags, mugs, magnets, a whole host of goodies that have our logo on them. And it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. My kids fight over who gets to use the Spoiler Piece mug. It's great.
Stop it. That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
Like you got to have ice cream in the Spoiler Piece mug yesterday.
Oh my God.
It's like, yeah, but like I was Bricks O'Brien, you know, I've been Bricks O'Brien 2 days in a row. He's a YouTube gamer. Who just does like family friendly games. So anyway, yeah.
Well,
you get the idea.
That is the cutest thing I've ever heard. So see if you get the merch, your kids can be fighting over it too. Or if you don't have kids, you and your friends can be fighting over it. Anyway. My name is Megan Kurds. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, member of BAFCA, and I'm also a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at the OpinionS. Oh, and Blue Sky at OpinionSWorld.
And I'm Dave Riedel. I am on all your platforms as Dave Sees Movies. I'm on Blue Sky too, but I don't remember what my handle is. I think it's Dave Sees Movies, but I don't know. And write for the Chicago Reader. I will have my print review of Five Nights at Freddy's in the Chicago Reader. And yes, very exciting. And
so go read that.
Go read that and like think about my ire about the state of journalism. So you can follow me on all those places at Dave Sees Movies, and there you have it.
Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.